Morning, everybody. How you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. There's Bugsy Malone up in front, looking for squirrels, never catching any. How are you? Hope you're happy and healthy, doing the things you love. This is your Wednesday Tottenham news, transfer views and clues update. As usual, guys, let me ask you for some favours. Please hit the like button for me on the video. It really helps find new Tottenham fans that might be interested. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already. 50% of you that watch the channel regularly haven't. Really appreciate it if you could. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topics. Let's start with Richarlison. According to many reports, the Telegraph leading the way. Saudi Arabian clubs have prioritised trying to sign Richarlison in January. The man obviously is currently undergoing or recovering from surgery on his pelvic bone. He took the time out. He said, forget the words he used exactly, but it was a lot of, the narrative of it was kind of, he feels like he's been put in the football club and everybody else ahead of him and it's time to focus on himself. Seems a little bit, pity party for one, because things haven't worked out so well at Tottenham. And he's lost his place in the Brazil team. Listen, I personally don't think he's very happy at Tottenham. I think he's an emotional roller coaster of a human being. And when things are bad, things are very, very bad inside his head. And I think a fresh start might be perfect for him. I don't know whether or not going to Saudi Arabia would be a good move for him in terms of his international chances, having lost his place at Tottenham. It hasn't harmed some people that have gone to Saudi Arabia, but it has others. So it'll be interesting to see if Saudi Arabia were to come along and pay, would he be willing and wanting to go there? I'm pretty sure he would like an exit from Tottenham if a suitable club arrived. Just not sure if a Saudi Arabian team is suitable in his eyes. Also, what would the fee be? I'm sure Daniel Levy would look at the fact that they've got money for days and think that they're silly and that they'll pay close to what Daniel Levy paid for him. I would be surprised if they were to do that, but look, if someone came in and bid £40 million, I'd bite your hand off, because you could put that money towards retuning and refining the squad in January, which according to reports the budget is not too substantial or sufficient anyway. So for me personally, can have our fingers crossed and hope that there's truth to it. Let me know your thoughts though. Do you still have hope in and faith in Richarlison and think he can figure it out at Tottenham? Or if there was a chance to get your £40 million, would you take it and wish him well and go again? If you do sell him, then obviously you do definitely need to go back into the market. We know Tottenham are after Santiago Jimenez. That story just won't go away. We spoke about that yesterday, so I won't talk about that anymore. But there is a story about another player that Tottenham have been linked with, but I think on the back of this news we can probably put it to bed, and that's with regard Evan Ferguson. Brighton have suggested that any club that wants to take him away from Brighton will have to pay a British record fee for the player, which would mean more than £115 million that Chelsea paid for Moses Caicedo in the summer. And I think that immediately rules out most clubs, if I'm honest. We spoke yesterday about how even teams like Arsenal would need injections of capital from their owners in the short term, which gives you a little bit of a buffer. It doesn't necessarily change the FFP outlook for the club, but it gives you a little bit more wiggle room when you have new injections of capital. But they would need to sell players in order to even finance an Ivan Toney, who I think they've prioritised. Chelsea would look either to Ivan Toney or elsewhere. I personally think that Chelsea are looking at Victor Osimhen. Osimhen came out a couple of days ago and said, when asked about his future, he said that he had a Chelsea football shirt, and I think the other team he said was Manchester United. I think he said most of his friends support Chelsea. So it looks to me like he's trying to twerk for that Chelsea gig. And look, if Chelsea were to sign Victor Osimhen, then that becomes a terrifying prospect for next season, and Chelsea will become an immediate threat at the top end of the table. Manchester United are obviously looking at Ivan Toney as well, and Victor Osimhen, and of course Evan Ferguson, but Even with Sir Jim Ratcliffe's new money, again, it gives you some immediate relief temporarily from FFP, but in the long run you still have to find a way to adhere to the rules, which are, as of next year, that you're not spending any more than 70% of your club's revenue on the aggregated conflated figures of your transfer fees, your player salaries and your agents' fees. And Manchester United, just like Newcastle and a few other clubs, are knocking up against that door. Tottenham, as I said yesterday, aren't, but I don't think that Tottenham will spend anything like £115 million on a player. As good as he is, as much ceiling as he has, you're baking in perfection. If you're paying £120 million for a guy that's had one good season, one breakout season in the Premier League, you're baking in perfection. And when you look at the long line of the top 20 Premier League transfer deals over the history of the Premier League, there's very few of them that have proven to be value for money in the long run. So Daniel Levy, having been bitten a few times in the past, I think he'll be quite gun shy of going for the bigger end of the transfer market, which is a frustration, but it's something we have to deal with. And at Tottenham, I think obviously the path has pivoted back towards risk within reason by going after young players whose contracts might be approaching the end of their tenure, and where we can see and try and find value for money. It's a frustration, but that's the owner that we have at the moment. And one of those names that we've been linked with recently is Albert, I forget how you say his name, is it Gudmundsson? The winger from Genoa, 12 games in Serie A this season, 5 or 6 goals, 2 assists, a right-footed left winger but plays off the right as well and comes through the middle. The style of play for Genoa is that he comes deep, picks the ball up on the halfway line and loves to drive and run at players. One of his teammates likened him to Mo Salah, in as much as when they played together at Roma as a younger guy, Salah, this teammate said, had all the potential in the world, but at the time would have the propensity to go missing in games and would score 5, or would take 5 chances to score 1. But that he said at the time that if Salah could figure out a way to increase his conversion and amplify the output, then he could go on and play for teams like Liverpool. And lo and behold, he did. And Salah's now known for being one of the best signings, or one of the best players in Premier League era. So, quite a compliment if it's sincere that he thinks that the ceiling is high, but also quite an insult if he's actually saying, you remind me of Salah back then when he was wasteful. Now, I don't know Genoa well enough to be able to tell you whether or not this guy Albert is wasteful, but his stats look really impressive, and to watch him on the Y-Scout tool, he looks really interesting. I love players that drive with the ball and want to create things. And look, he's someone that we'll just add him to the list of the never-ending long line of wingers that we're being linked with at the moment. I'm going to have to do a video for you guys next week that will probably say the top 10 wingers that Tottenham are linked with, because there's about 100 of them. And it's clear to me, if the rumours are true, that Tottenham are certainly looking to go in that direction. This particular player, his contract isn't up until 2025, or 2026, I think, actually. But I read this morning that Genoa are trying to tie him down to a new contract renewal, which, if that happens, then obviously you can chalk him off in all likelihood. He's only valued at 12 million quid according to Transfer Market, but is a very interesting, very cool player. For what it's worth, if you're just looking at his stats, you should probably bear in mind that he has scored a couple of penalties as well. So I think he is Genoa's penalty taker. So bear that in mind when you're looking at the turnover and the ratio of goals to games from a winger. Those things are necessary considerations, I guess. In terms of other news, more and more stories about Lloyd Kelly and Tosin, but nothing worth updating you on. Højbjerg to Juve, still stories out there this morning that's still on. And look, it comes down to, for me guys, if we've only got 60-70 million quid readily available for the January window, but you could go and sell Richarlison for 40, and maybe you go and sell Pierre Højbjerg for 30, then suddenly you do have a bumper pay packet of 150 million, and with that money you've then got this data science team, the likes of Johan Lang and Rob McKenzie, Ange Postecoglou. Now you've got the guys in there now, with Scott Munn as well running their kind of eye over it, to be able to identify, good value for money opportunities. If you can also move Eric Dyer on and Hugo Lloris, then you also create space in the squad, and then you can go and get a few bits. Like I said yesterday, go and get Jimenez for 50 million, whatever it's going to cost, 45 million. Go and get one of the centre-backs, Tosin or Lloyd Kelly, if that's where you really want to go. I personally would like to go and get a bigger name, a more experienced name, because for me, as much as I admire and I appreciate going after young players, and I understand the rationale from it from a business perspective, the inflation in transfer fees is outperforming the ability to grow your revenue so significantly that every major team is pushing up against FFP now. And without the multi-club ownership, the model, I was watching yesterday, I didn't know this, but they're going to be changing the rule that allows teams that have multi-club ownership to be able to transfer players within the system, without having to force them to pay reasonable prices. It's just another loosening of the grip that allows these teams to benefit, and Tottenham haven't got that access. I think they were using Sesko, who went from Salzburg to Leipzig for like 20 million quid, and yet Manchester United had a bid turned down for him for 50 million. I'm not sure which way the rule is. I'm not sure if the rule's going to be tightened or loosened on that one, so I'm going to come back to you on that. I forget I said it. But in any event, Tottenham don't have the benefit of multi-club ownership, and so I understand the need to go down this path of trying to find young players and stuff. But ultimately, if Tottenham want to compete in multiple fronts next year or in the next 18 months, 2 years, whatever, then I think that you are going to need a little bit of a blend of experience. Some people that have been there and done it. And with Sonny, coming towards the end of his time at Tottenham in the next couple of years, Maddison hasn't really got that much European experience. You're going to start to have a team that is a little bit innocent. I won't say naive or ignorant, because I think those words have got negative connotations, but innocence to the pressures of multi-front, high stakes, high level, high pressure environments. And that can be a good thing and a bad thing. It's a blessing and a curse. You don't know what you don't know, so you can just go at it with that exuberance and excitement. But ultimately, I think you do need to kind of sprinkle in a little bit of quality where they can grab the game by both hands at times, and when the pressure is really on, the younger players are going to look up and find people that have been there, done it, and that are competent of dissecting the pressure and removing the threat, removing the fear from the younger players. And that's why I look at players like Pedro Gonçalves from Sporting and think, if you can go and get him, I know he's going to cost 70 million quid, but at some point Tottenham can get a little bit creative with the accounting. At some point they can take a little bit of risk. At some point they can repay the loyalty of the fans. Whilst I get the issue with spending 115, 120 million pound on an Evan Ferguson, you're paying for perfection. With a Pedro Gonçalves, you know what you're going to get. You're getting a guy that has got 25 GAs every single year basically for the last 5 years of his career. He's done it at the highest level, and he is someone that already knows Pedro Porro. He can come in. There's that kind of Portuguese / Spanish speaking contingent in the club. I don't think it'll be hard for him to acclimate, and he's the sort of person that is just going to be able to step straight in, fit in on the left, fit in on the right. He can play in a number of positions. You've got the utility, the versatility, and the quality. And for me, I'd love to see it. Similar with like a Gleison Bremer at the back, going and getting a Lloyd Kelly or a Tosin Adarabioyo. All right, I get it. Cheap, end of contract, reliable. But, are those sorts of players going to really be the difference between finishing 6th and 4th or finishing 4th and 1st or 2nd? if you want to go on, and that's ultimately what I guess we're trying to do here, I think you need to sprinkle in a little bit more quality with the kind of youth and the kind of the innocence of quality that comes with 18, 19-year-olds. That's just my thoughts, guys. Nothing else to talk about. I'll let you go. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, bye-bye.